first we're going to jump into the 49ers versus Vikings recap. I do have notes that I took on this game, and I can just jump straight into the notes. But Mike, do you have any like first things that jump out to you about this game besides the fact that the Niners just can't win in Minnesota and haven't won in Minnesota since 1992?
Yeah, that was kind of the big one that jumped out to me. I remember being in middle school and seeing the end of the game where Brett Favre had a comeback against the Niners in like the final play. He threw a dart to the back of the end zone. I remember that one being in Minnesota, and then the last one was with Jimmy G, I think, right?
Injured. No. The last one was last season.
Oh, last year. Yeah, last year.
Yeah, it was last season. Yeah, we talked about it, and like, you know, I was pretty adamant that the 49ers were going to win that game, but then they ended up like being one of the only teams to lose to Kirk Cousins on Monday night. So
yeah, the Vikings stadium is a stadium that I am very much looking forward to going to for a game at some point in my life. I don't know when, but that atmosphere just seems different. So
it's definitely a stadium
advantage.
Yeah, it's definitely a stadium that I can see myself wanting to go to. And of course, maybe the 49ers are just waiting for me to buy tickets to go out on the road to see them, you know, win the first game since 1992 in Minnesota. I don't know. Maybe they're just waiting for me. But let me get into my notes for the game. So, you know, these are all the things that stood out to me. I'm not going to tell the entire story of the entire game in my notes, but you know, the 49ers started out slow on offense, and you know, I noticed that they weren't running it a ton early, and I thought Jordan Mason did a really good job in week 1, and the 49ers just kind of started off, you know, a little pass heavy to begin with for my liking. But another thing that was like kind of huge early on in the game was Mitch Wishnowsky was punting the football, and the Vikings were able to block the punt, and like, dude, it's blocked. Touch the ball carrier when he's down. Literally, the Vikings player had the ball, you know, right in front of where Mitch Wishnowsky was, and all he had to do was tap him. The dude gets up and runs for like easily another 10 to 15 yards, and I'm just like, why? Like, what's so hard about, you know, just touching them down? Like, you know, instead, another teammate and even Mitch Wishnowsky had to run down the field in order to prevent a touchdown. And it's football 101. So I don't know. Like, to me, that was just a really, really rough play. And then there was 4th and 3 in the second quarter, you know, for the 49ers. And it was a great throw by Purdy, and it was a clutch catch by Juwan Jennings. I don't know how I felt about the decision to go for it, but I mean, it paid off. The 49ers drove down the field and didn't get any points. And a few plays later, so the Niners decided to go for it on 4th down, you know, to punch it in the end zone. Couldn't get it. Literally a few plays later, Justin Jefferson gets a 97-yard touchdown, and it's 10-0. And that was a real backbreaker, I would say, because it's like, you know, that's like a 14-point swing. The Niners were expecting to get 7 points there. Instead, it's 7 points going the other way. Another thing that jumped out to me was, you know, Kittle had a touchdown. I'm glad that they're finally utilizing Kittle a little bit more than they have over the past couple years. Like, I noticed Kittle's a little bit more involved this year, whereas in years past, he's kind of been like the complementary player and really more used as a blocker. And there was even a moment in the game that I'll talk about a little bit later that I have in my notes, but, you know, involving Kittle. But, you know, other stuff, man. Special teams was just a problem in this game for the 49ers. Cowing muffed a punt in the third quarter, and luckily Isaac Yiadom picked up his teammate by recovering the muffed punt. But, like, you know, the disaster was averted there, but the Niners just kept shooting themselves in the foot in this game. And, you know, it was like, you know, to kind of like sum it up, like, you know, not to spoil anything, like it was kind of an ugly game for the 49ers. But Purdy had an interception in the third quarter, and then there was a touchdown literally the next play. It's 20-7 at that point. And then Kittle gets carted off. It was like one of those things where you didn't really see him get carted off on TV, or at least I didn't see it. And then you just like look at people talking about it on Twitter about how Kittle's going to the locker room, and it was like kind of weird. You never want to hear that a player gets carted off. And it turns out he was good. He just had cramps, and they gave him an IV, and he was able to return to the game and play just fine. And then there was another noteworthy play for me was another turnover by Brock Purdy. I thought it was an interception at first, but it looked like he just let go of the football and it went upward. And so it was technically a fumble, but it was like a fumble interception. Not that those exist, but just to kind of paint the picture in your mind of what it looked like. And then the Niners defense was just getting gashed. They I don't know, they couldn't stop Aaron Jones. He was one of the players that I felt like going into this game, he didn't have as good of a game as he did in like the NFC divisional round when he was on the Packers, but like, he definitely gave the 49ers run defense a lot of problems. And then Sam Darnold was just killing the 49ers yesterday. And that was something that I didn't anticipate going into the game. I thought maybe the Niners could take advantage of Sam Darnold being one of the stationary quarterbacks and, having Bosa, Leonard Floyd, Javon Hargrave collapse on him. So I thought that was going to be a matchup nightmare, which ended out. I guess Sam Darnold is faster than I remember, because Sam Darnold had like, he had like a 35-yard run, or I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating, but it felt like, it felt like a huge, rush. And so the defense struggled. And then there was a play. Aaron Jones fumbled near the goal line. So the Vikings were like going down the field, and Aaron Jones fumbles near the goal line at the end of the third quarter. It was recovered by San Francisco. Suddenly the 49ers are back in the game, headed into the fourth quarter. The 49ers got a touchdown. It was Jordan Mason, finally, recommitting to Jordan Mason. And then there is a 3rd and long, and the Vikings convert a long pass in triple coverage to set them up in the red zone. After that, I have 49ers 2-minute drill. I really should have put like what score it was, and like, if the Vikings had scored there, but
I feel like it was 17-20 or 17-23 probably, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was 23-17 by the time the
Mason touchdown.
Might have been 23-14 at that point, because the Niners did end up kicking a field goal and then kicked an onside. So I think it was 23-14 because the final score was 23-17.
Right.
49ers did run like a 2-minute drill, and I had a couple notes on it. There was an offsides penalty. There was an offsides penalty. It was clear. The defensive end clearly jumped offsides. Purdy needs to take a shot down the field. It's a free play. Small plays over the middle are not going to get it done when you're behind. Like, why? I mean, maybe he just didn't see the defender coming from his blind side, like, already had a step, or maybe didn't want to rely and lose the game. But, quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers have made a living. Like just last week did that. There was an offsides penalty. And Allen Lazard got the big touchdown last week against the 49ers. So, I would like to see Brock Purdy take a shot down the field with that play when you're down by 2 possessions. And then Debo got hurt. And we're going to talk about Debo. I guess, kind of going into the Rams game, but there's bigger news on Debo that we will get into. And then there was a completion to Brandon Ayuk that should have been intercepted right before the 2-minute warning. It was like literally tipped off of a defender, and Ayuk somehow came away with it. And then Wishnowsky had another rough part this game where I don't know. I was looking at I was kind of questioning the ball placement because I have seen kickers place the ball on its side before when kicking an onside kick, but the way he had it angled, I just I mean, he's the professional and I'm not, but the onside kick was just bad. And, it didn't even travel 10 yards from what I could tell. And so it just gave the Niners no chance on that. So it just kind of kept spinning. And, that was the ball game, 23-17. So it was really like an ugly game, I think, from San Francisco. And for whatever reason, they just cannot get it done in Minnesota. I think the Niners were the better team, but they got their asses kicked. The Vikings, they give them credit. They played a good game, and the 49ers looked like a team that it's kind of like, do you remember in 2020 coming off the Super Bowl coming off the Super Bowl season, the Niners had just lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs. They go into week 1 and kind of get their asses kicked by the Cardinals. And then the next week, they're fine against the Jets, looked like a Super Bowl contender again.
Vaguely, yeah.
So 2020 was a Super Bowl hangover season. I'm not saying that this will be a Super Bowl hangover season. I honestly it's one game. There were glaring issues that need to be addressed on defense and with Shanahan's play calling, especially early on, commit to the run. But it's just one game. It's very early to really determine how this season is going to go. The 49ers are 500 as it currently speaks. They're 1-1. They're probably going to win next week. Unless the Deebo Samuel injury, repeats itself from last year where they couldn't win a game without him. The 49ers in 2020, instead of losing week 1 this time around, they won week 1 against the Jets and then looked bad the following week. Is this going to be one of those inconsistent seasons for the 49ers? Too early to tell, but that's one that we will get the answer to as we progress along the season. That's the worry with the Super Bowl hangover. It's like a team can look really good one game, and then they'll just you can't even put your finger on why they played that bad. And so now the 49ers are in a position right now where they're down McCaffrey, they're going to be down Deebo, and they are going to be, playing against the Rams. But before we talk about the Rams game, Mike, do you have any final, things that you want to say about the Vikings game, or, should 49er fans like myself be worried, going forward? Or do you think it's just one game?
I think it's probably just one game. I mean, the optimistic side of everything is, well, in a couple of weeks, you'll have McCaffrey and Deebo back. It's just a matter of can they stay healthy, and that's where probably the pessimism would come in. But, I'm personally, I think you probably already know this if you've watched here and there. I'm a believer in Shanahan as far as, as a play caller. I just can't help but think that the Vikings probably had a good read on, the Niners, not playbook, but designs and game plan, because O'Connell, the head coach for the Vikings, is from that offensive, Shanahan scheme. And I would say, honestly, just Brian Flores is a super impressive defensive coordinator. And I think the mixture of the two probably were able to game plan really well for this game. And, the Niners just aren't fully healthy right now. So, if you have a slow start, it's like, oh, that sucks. But, I mean, we'll get into the week 3 game in a second here, but you have a pretty banged up team that you're going to face next week. So I personally, I wouldn't worry too much. I would just say the only worry that I would have is if I were a Niner fan is, what is unfortunate with your current predicament is just you're in this win now timeline, and everything that seems to be happening from the offseason till now, with now McCaffrey's injury and Debo's injury, is like everything is just the writing is on the wall that this current Super Bowl window is not long for this, current.
Yeah, it's not wide open. Like, it's closing.
Yeah.
We're closer to the end of it than we are from the beginning of it.
Yeah. So really, if I were a Niner fan, that would be my worry would be more in the grand scheme of things of not just this year, but next year and the following year. Like, yeah, as every fan should, this week matters, and also this season matters. Like, I want to win the Super Bowl this year. Of course, everybody does. And that, as a Niner fan, that should be, the goal, right? So if you guys don't, it's like, yeah, it's a letdown. But in the grand scheme of things, it's like, you dating back to 2020 or 2019, not winning these Super Bowls when you have this timeline, that's where the worry sets in. So if, 2 years from now, it's like they blow it up and all you have left is Purdy, Boza, Ayuk, and maybe one other guy. Fred Warner. Yep, that'd be the other guy, which that was the other thing I was going to mention was just from what I saw of the highlights, because I was pretty busy and I didn't really get to see this game. It seemed like Fred Warner had a really good game in this one.
Yeah, he did. So Fred Warner was, I guess, like, the diamond. I guess you would say in the rough of, the 49ers' good performances, because overall I'd say, like, as a team, special teams wasn't good. The defense wasn't great. I think Brock Purdy also had a pretty, he had a pretty rough game in my opinion. And, I think a lot is being, discussed about Purdy's looming contract. And what I'll say is, how many times have we seen quarterbacks, even good quarterbacks, I'd say, have a bad game? Like, I don't think Brock Purdy is a quarterback that you can judge based on one game. And, he has had rough games in his career and he has bounced back. That's just part about, being resilient. Is the loss all on him? No. Is the loss all on special teams? No. Is it all on defense? No. I just think it's like collectively they just got their ass kicked by the Vikings. So, they looked out of sync and they look like a team who has not been practicing a lot together all as a unit. And, when I say that, I feel like, a lot of fans have been discussing Brandon Ayuk and how he's being paid a lot of money now and, he's not producing. But I mean, I think there's two sides to this. Like, the 49ers waited to get him to sign his contract. I mean, this could have been lingering on until now if the 49ers didn't, all the reports say Shanahan went up to Ayuk at practice that day and was like, hey, we're going to trade you by the end of the day. If you don't, like, our final offer is our final offer. If not, we're sending you to Pittsburgh. What took so long to do that and to get him into practice? Why couldn't you have gotten this done a while ago? Why are you behind on all that contract stuff? And now Ayuk's not the first player that just gets paid and then just doesn't perform. Bosa did it last year. Bosa literally did not have training camp and it didn't bode well for him. And now you're in this position where now you're married to this guy that is rusty. He's just not ready. He hasn't had a full camp. Last year, Brandon Ayuk had a great season because he had a fantastic training camp, attacked every single day. So, I think Ayuk will get better as the season progresses, just like how Nick Bosa got better the way the season progressed last year. But, ultimately, The Niners made Sam Darnold look like a good quarterback, and not all teams make the 40. I mean, not all teams let Sam Darnold look like a good quarterback, and it was just a bad game. They need to watch the film. Luckily, football is a game of adjustments. They will be able to look on film. They should be getting reinforcements later on, as the season progresses with Talanoa Hufanga, with Christian McCaffrey, hopefully getting Debo back, in just a couple weeks. So, yeah, Mike, we were both wrong on our pick, and you currently don't have a single correct pick yet in 2024, Mike. Let's talk about the upcoming game against the Rams. What do you think, Mike? How do you think that this game is going to turn out? Both teams are very banged up at skill position, at their skill positions. Obviously with the Rams having Puka Nacua out, Cooper Kupp out, and the 49ers will be missing Debo and have been missing Christian McCaffrey. What do you think, Mike? Do you want to predict this one first, or you want me to just, keep going on?
You can keep going
on. I think the 49ers are going to – I think they're going to steamroll the Rams. And that's not to say that the 49ers are, just by far and away the best team in the NFL, but I think the Rams already – they're just a banged-up football team. They're missing – I don't know if they're still missing 4 starting linemen, but I know over week 1 and 2 they were missing several starting offensive linemen. So they haven't been able to get the run going. And their passing game was literally this season supposed to be a funnel to Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Now both of those players are out. All the linemen are out. They can't run the ball, and they're going to have to find who to pass to. Matt Stafford is still a good quarterback. So, I mean, for all I know, the Rams will just have somebody like a Tutu Atwell, like a Tyler Johnson, like a Demarcus Robinson ready in the woodworks to just blindside the 49ers. And the 49ers typically like to lean on Debo Samuel in these games against the Rams. Debo has his best games, I think, against the Rams. And right now, Mike is kicking himself because, either something's going on in the Monday night game, which we both have off to the side here. This is like a cool little hangout session. Either something's going on there, or Mike is thinking about how he has Debo on his fantasy team, and he's not going to be getting the Debo versus Rams matchup this year, or at least this week. Is that part of it, Mike?
That would be it.
Yeah. And Mike is going to be playing against me this upcoming week, and he has already started the shit talk. But let's keep it focused on 49ers Rams. The Rams will not be having Aaron Donald, who already doesn't make a huge impact against the 49ers. They will be having, Braden Fisk on their defensive line. He's not an exact one-to-one replacement for Aaron Donald. So I don't know. I like the 49ers in this game. I think they'll bounce back. And I just hope that beyond this game, they're able to keep the consistency going, or else if they're hot and they're cold, that's the Super Bowl hangover, dude.
Yeah. I think the Super Bowl hangover would really show if, I don't know, for me, I think of the Eagles 2 seasons ago when it was just they were coming off a season where it's their offense was playing historically good, and then they come in the next season, it's just their attitude seems different. Their offensive efficiency is just way down. I don't exactly know if I would call this a Super Bowl hangover just because of injuries. I get if it's inconsistent, it feels like it, but the whole McCaffrey thing is just a matter of bad luck, And I will say it's interesting that he got paid right before this happened to him, but that's another topic. I just think from what I saw of the Niners week 1, that's the interesting thing. We're going to get on the Raiders pretty soon here, but just both teams, it felt like completely opposite teams. Niners and Raiders, like week 1, week 2. Not Niners versus Raiders, but like versus themselves. It's like Raiders week 1, shit, garbage. Week 2, whoa. Niners week 1, oh, they're still the best team in football besides maybe the Chiefs. Week 2, it's like, well, what the hell was that? It's just, I don't know. Like, yes, they might be inconsistent, but like I said, I think once they get healthy, if they can stay healthy, they'll be consistent. And I feel like that's kind of that's a Shanahan to a T. Like that's been the Niners' experience the past couple years. Is like, oh crap, slow start, and then just gone. Like yeah, they're the favorite in the NFC again. Like I would fully expect it. As far as this game against the Rams, the Niners are looking more and more unhealthy, but the Rams are way more unhealthy, and I don't see how. What the fuck was that from Kirk Cousins?
Yeah,
I don't
he
see.
sailed that into the stands.
Yeah, I don't see how the Niners lose this game. I think Stafford's great, but I don't think he's going to be able to just force feed some random wide receivers, against this Niners team. I think the Niners will just honestly, the Niners are just going to run Jordan Mason all over them. They'll start getting Ayuk going. And maybe like a Juwan Jennings or somebody steps up, opposite Ayuk.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to guess the receiver who's going to step up, I think, Jacob Cowing obviously had the rough muffed punt, that was recovered by Isaac Yiadom, but Jacob Cowing is a good route runner and does have a lot of college experience to my knowledge. So I think that he could be the guy who steps in because Ricky Pearsall's not there yet because he's on IR. Oh, and that's another reinforcement that I forgot to even mention.
Yeah.
Ricky Pearsall's on IR. Debo's out. Ayuk's being worked back in, but I think I see this being another big Kittle game, and I see this being another attempt to try to get Ayuk going. It's been kind of consistently like Shanahan's been carving out 5 targets for Ayuk. It feels like. I'm hoping that he's like getting more and more into game shape because right now would be a great time for him to, to finally turn it on. But like I said, it's one of those things where it takes time. Like there's a reason why teams start, preparing months in advance with like OTAs and then mini camp and then training camp. Like back then, teams used to not only do, like practice how they do now, they used to do more on top of that. There used to be double days. There was a whole lot more practice. And, it was, I think, better for the athletes, bodies to get used to football.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I literally, that's what I was thinking like today or yesterday with this cup injury. And now, I mean, we mentioned we were going to get back into Debo, but Debo being out for multiple weeks now, it's like, oh man, Tua's a different story, obviously him with concussions, but as far as my fantasy team goes with Tyreek Hill and Debo as my top 2 receivers, I'm feeling awesome right now. So, but as far as Tua goes, fantasy doesn't matter. I hope he's all good at the end of the day, and whatever decision he makes is the right one, hopefully. But yeah, these injuries this season suck. It's week 2. Week 2 is not even finished. We're halfway through Monday Night Football right now, and there are a lot of players that are injured, and a lot of these injuries were week 1 and week 2, and not the preseason and off season. So that makes me wonder if it's like, well, I know the NFLPA and whoever, probably their union worked towards this of like, let's make training camp a little easier on the players. Well, if it's too easy on the players, then when you get into game speed and it's like, receivers have to cut as hard as they can and shit like that, and all of a sudden their calf and their Achilles go out, it's like, well, that sucks.
Yeah. No, 100%. And so I don't know if we'll ever see the return of those kind of days, in the NFL. I don't think so. I think it's going to progressively be less and less practice, but if they don't do something about it, they shouldn't be so shocked when all the star players are hurt by week 2. Like this is nothing new. And one of those players that I do want to bring up again is Deebo Samuel, because that is the big news coming out of today about Deebo and his calf. So I guess people kind of, if people have spoken to me about the Niners or have listened to this podcast, when the Niners drafted Ricky Pearsall, I thought for sure Ayuk was gone. And then I turned to Mike and I said, you know how ecstatic I would be if the 49ers keep, if they sign Ayuk and then trade Deebo. It's not because of Deebo, the player. Like, it's partly because he can't beat man coverage consistently. Like, Deebo's kind of like, he is a more shifty running back, I would say, like with hands. Deebo's a wide back. Like, he calls himself a wide back. And I don't think the running aspect, I don't think the 49ers are really capitalizing on that anymore, because I think teams have adjusted to it and they're not fooled by it anymore. So the main reason is because Deebo just can't stay on the field. And it's not Deebo's fault. Like, Deebo's style of play is great. It carried them in 2021. But I've been saying his style of play is not one that is going to it's not going to be sustainable over the course of a career. Your body is going to break down just naturally. The more physical you play, like that's just how it is. Like, I wish I could say, get better doctors and everything, but sometimes it's just science. The more wear and tear you put on your body, the more your body is going to break down. I mean, it's not even just science, it's common sense. So I don't know. I hope Deebo is able to prove me wrong, but that's part of the reason why I'm like, yeah, it's harder to replicate a skill set like Deebo than it is to replicate a skill set like Ayuk, but can he sustain it? That's the biggest question. But Mike, let's finally provide a prediction for a winner in this 49ers Rams matchup. You still have not picked a correct winner. So I'll give you first liberty. The pressure's on you, so you can't copy my answer.
Yeah, no, it's easily the Niners here. I just think that the Rams are going to have a tough game, and the Niners need that get back game, get right game.
I agree. I'm picking the 49ers. Also, the Rams just got their asses kicked by the Cardinals. So, I don't know. If people are picking the Rams, please let me know in the comments, what is propelling you to pick the Rams? I don't know.
I'm looking at the upcoming.
The Niners still have a lot of talent on defense, and they are a team that historically plays well against the Rams. So that's why I'm picking the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm honestly just looking 2 weeks ahead from now, and I see the Cardinals at week 5, and I think that's going to be a very interesting game.
That will be a very, very interesting game. And right now it's looking like it's going to be a tough game for the Niners.
It's actually a big 4 weeks before the bye week. Cardinals, Seahawks, Chiefs, Cowboys.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's going to be that's probably the roughest stretch on this schedule.
Yeah. Anyways.
Then afterwards, bye week. Yeah. I mean, we're looking too far ahead, but I mean, the Niners schedule just looks harder and harder every day. So hopefully the 49ers can be a winning team by the time they play the Dolphins, because the Dolphins don't do good against winning teams. But I'm picking the 49ers. We're locking it in. If anything changes, Mike will let me know before game time, and it will be valid. But Mike would be a madman to switch his pick.